You guys will have to let me know. Anyway, good afternoon for those in the United States. This is Cordell with Paranormal Pulse, and I have Dave and Carrie with me. How are you doing, Dave?
Yeah, doing good, Cordell. Doing good.
Dave's over in Scotland, and we've had some weird stuff going on with the YouTube, and Carrie and Dave are checking in, seeing if this is going live. Hopefully it is. Carrie, how are you doing?
Ragged like death itself.
Yeah,
I've been to bed.
we had an investigation last
Hey,
night.
I got it. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I see
Yeah.
it. It shows as live, and just for those that for this broadcast, yeah, we've had some weird stuff happen with the YouTube. But if you listen to watch some other live streams, they have some of the same complaints. Anyway, so this is Cordell with Paranormal Pulse and Dave and Carrie. And me and Carrie are a little rough around the edges. We had an investigation last night that went really well, quite interesting. And sometime in the future, we might talk about some of the stuff that happened. But
Hi,
guys,
Kimberly.
what?
Kimberly.
Oh, hey, Kimberly.
She was there last night.
Yep, there's Kimberly. And Dave, as usual, is at night in Scotland with us. I'm glad he's here. So today's broadcast, guys, this is a subject we always in the paranormal find ourselves talking about constantly, and that's paranormal theories, hypothesis, whatever. Just the whole realm of the paranormal, and the reason we always guys end up talking about this subject is because there's so many things that appear to be like presented as fact. Here's what's happening. We know it. Um, but if you really look into it, it's like, where's the facts other than it's been perpetuated or it sounds good, right? And it goes, oh, well, this sounds good, and it becomes accepted.
A fad.
Yeah, and I know Carrie and Dave, you're very opinionated on this subject, as am I. I get very frustrated watching some of the shows, watching some of the YouTube stuff, and how it's like this is fact. And so, on that note, I wanted to start out with one of the older things in the paranormal that's presented as fact and like, oh, this is, yeah, and that's dead hour, the 3 a.m. in the morning, which is interesting because if you look it up, it comes from witching hour, the witching hour, which actually goes back 500 or 600 years. Oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna interrupt myself on.
Robert, Bob, Janie
Hey,
is
hey
on.
Bob.
Hey, Bob, Jane, how you guys?
Yeah.
So it's one of the older ones. That's why I wanted to start with this, you guys. So I'm going to present the question to you guys, or the questions, and like to hear your take on it. But real quick, like the dead hour, you'll hear that a lot in the paranormal. It really stems from the 500 or 600 year old concept of the witching hour, which actually came from Catholicism and the time of witches, and people literally believed that witches were cursing people and conjuring evil and devil and sickness on people. And it was actually 3 to 4 a.m. Why? I haven't been able to really come up with find a good answer for 3 to 4, other
Sneak
than,
out then.
yeah, well, that seems to be what it is, Carrie. It came up with that 1 hour was the hardest to keep track of people. So therefore, if something bad happened, somebody must have been sneaking around and doing
I
witchy
love it's that time, but for you, Dave, your witching hour, if it was to be 3 to 4 our time,
Yeah, well,
the whole concept
Yeah.
of time I mean, it just.
Well, so
If it
here's
has
my
a witching hour at this exact hour, then it can't be a witching hour in Scotland at that exact hour.
well, it's interesting, right, guys? Because time itself, and yeah, what makes 3 to 4, and anyway, so here's my question, you guys. So, Dave, what's your take on the dead hour, 3 a.m., the most that and because in the paranormal, let's be straight, let's be clear here. A lot of people believe that if there's going to be a lot of activity, that's when it can happen for whatever reason. But so we'll go Dave and then Carrie. So what's your take on it, Dave?
Yeah, Cordell. I've seen no difference over the years with the time with the witching hour, the dead hour, to any other hour. In the UK, there is a kind of a legend. If you go to a church entrance at, I think, during the witching hour, during All Hallows Eve, you're supposed to see your dead relatives who are going to die that coming year. You're supposed to see them walk past you. But yeah, I've found no difference between. All I do know is that you are absolutely knackered at 3 and 4 in the morning. So whether you see more because you're delirious, I'm not sure. But no, I've found no difference at all to suggest time. There is this magical time, when things happen. So
Before Carrie answers, I do want to just say one thing, what you said, Dave, because that's really the core of this, is that somehow the energy's heightened, and because you mentioned that, and the energy's heightened, so therefore there's more likelihood of stuff to happen. So now to you, Carrie, the same question. What's your take on the dead hour?
Malarkey.
How do you really feel, Carrie?
Yeah, well, it's just like I said. How can you have one strict witching hour that pertains to everybody? It can't. And the fact that, well, let's just go with the basic stuff. If you're investigating in the day, you've got better visual. You can see more. So if you want to say you're going to see shadows or something, you can see it better in the daytime. The witch it's come out as this fad that anybody can go at this time do this. So it's a scare tactic to scare yourself into this. But basically, for so many reasons, it's just a bunch of malarkey. We've had better investigations during the day sometimes than at night.
Yeah, I and my take on it is kind of the same as both of yours. I've never experienced any more activity at 3 in the morning than I have at 2 in the afternoon. We've had just as much stuff happen at 3 in the afternoon as
yeah,
we've had at there's not 1 hour, guys, or one time of the day that I can point to that goes, oh, you need to make sure you investigate during these times because that's the most active. I've never seen that. I've never experienced it. If I only went on 10 investigations in my whole life and they were all midnight to 6 in the morning, I probably could say that, right? Going, because it's a small data set and it's a small amount of data to pick from. But
Janie did make a point that's talked about a lot too that I didn't. It is the mocking of the Trinity.
well, that's another one I was going to bring up. Um, but to finish off the three, the dead hour, some special hour, because really to me, we can break it down as, is there a special time that more activity happens than other? I have not seen it. Dave, that's what I take from your statement.
yeah, yeah.
Carrie, same thing. You haven't seen any special time. And it sounds nice, right? It sounds convenient that there's a higher energy level at that time. People claim, like the story you told, Dave, about relatives. I've heard people say, well, if you play the Ouija board at 3 in the morning, more stuff is likely to happen because this energy level. I
It's a
haven't seen
selling
it.
point too.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I think it sounds good, it makes for people, unlike Carrie, you already mentioned it. I think if people believe in that, well, there is probably a likelihood that anything that happens, that's what they'll remember. They won't remember what happened at midnight. They're going to remember that 3 in the morning, and that's what'll stick in their mind. Like, oh yeah, I had these two things, or this happened at 3 in the
I
morning.
was brave
So
enough to do this.
do what?
I no, it's what people say. I did this during the witching
Yeah.
hour, and all
Yeah,
this stuff.
I knew when we talked about this one, it would probably be a fairly short one, because it's just uh, it goes back centuries, and during the horrible time in Europe with witches and all this, uh, and so anyway, what did Jane say?
Something about Amityville Horror 315 situation.
Oh yeah, she's right. Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to see it when I was young, and
Oh well,
It's
you didn't
actually,
need
I
to.
think it's a common theme in a lot of these horror movies, isn't it? 3 o'clock. As soon as
Yeah.
the alarm clock hits 3, something
So
happens.
or everybody wakes up at 3 o'clock to something paranormal happening in their house. Always 3 o'clock.
and it's funny because this brings into the to kind of the so let's expand this a little bit, because this is the other thing that drives me crazy, that somehow nighttime is the best time to encounter the dead. And the sun has to be down, the moon has to be up, all this stuff. And this isn't like a real big thing. It's just that everybody investigates at night. So all the activity they encounter is at night. So therefore, nighttime's the best time to investigate. Now, I'm going to go through the same thing here.
Like,
We'll we'll get Dave's opinion of this, then we'll get Carrie's, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents. And Jane's, what does Jane say in here? Let's get Jane up on the screen. Oh yeah. Thank you, Jane.
I'm lost on that.
So Dave, what, because this to me is part of the whole time frame, the time theories that, as soon as the sun goes down, the dead all of a sudden start walking around. What's your take on all that?
You know, Cuddle, we've discussed this lots, haven't we? It's okay, if you investigate at night, chances are is there's less environmental kind of interference. There's probably less cars on the road, less people walking around screaming.
Yeah.
Well, okay, this is over now. Bob
That's
just
thrown us completely off. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's just, if you're looking at an external stimulus, there's probably less at night. But then on the other hand, you're probably more tired. Probably more prone to see things. And I mean, it is nighttime, and your kind of cognitive biases are kicking in all the time because people want to see things. So if you want to see things, chances are as you will see it. And it's nighttime, and nighttime is predominantly dark.
Sorry.
Where the monsters hang out, So yeah, I would honestly think that I've seen no difference in. Oh man,
you want to comment
Derek
on Bob's?
isn't around anymore. He's probably going to haunt you at 3 in the morning.
exactly, Bob.
Damn.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've seen no difference in time. I much prefer kind of afternoon investigations, to be honest. But I've seen no difference in time from morning, noon, night. No difference. Other than at night, you are a bit more tired and probably more prone to see things. The visible
Carrie?
good.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Carrie,
I'm
what's
gonna
your opinion?
spare everybody and not repeat what Dave said, but another thing is how much or how many things happen during the day that we just kind of shrug off. Because daytime, face it, is self-soothing because you have light and people are around or up. So if something were to happen during the day, you'd probably brush it off. Whereas it happened at night, you'd be a little more aware of it. So yeah, a lot of times more happens during the day. You just got to be aware of it, not brush it off. Whereas nighttime, like you said, you're setting yourself up. No matter how hard you try, there's always going to be that I can't see 1 foot in front of me and I'm contained in this little box or whatever. What is Bob going on about? He's always around him. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if something were to happen to you during the day, how likely would you just kind of be like, oh, well, and move on, not really pay attention to it? Whereas if that happened at night,
Yeah.
What was that type of thing?
Yeah, and thank you, Carrie. Yeah, my take is what you guys already said, and we've investigated in the daytime and at night. I haven't really seen any clear cut advantage for either one, and you both summed it up. You have all this environmental static or noise going on in the daytime. You have cars, you have pedestrians, you have building noises, you have all kinds of stuff going on around you. You're less likely to notice stuff. At night, it's quieter. You notice every little creak. And like Dave said too, you tend you know there seems to be one big problem here, guys, and this is what has always bothered me about investigating is if you always investigate in the dark, that lends itself to seeing more shadows, more this or that, because and because I'm a firm believer 24/7, the places we've stayed at or investigated in the daytime, there's just as much activity. It's just you have to pay more attention in the daytime because there's more outside interference.
School. I'm trying to be good.
Yeah, and
Then
go ahead.
real quick, I did put my finger up. I thought you stopped for me, so sorry. You saying you're seeing more shadows and stuff at night. So how many shadows and crap are you seeing during the day? But it's just natural. It's daytime. There's a shadow. So
Right.
you could be losing all this information then. So sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Kerry. I think if you hear a scream or if you hear kids screaming and playing through the day, it's just kids outside. If you hear that at night, then you automatically assume it's paranormal. So yeah.
Oh yeah, anytime I hear a kid at night, I'm looking out my windows like who's out there. During the day, it's like whatever.
Yeah. No, and I don't want to get too deep down this rabbit hole, but you guys just brought up a good point because let's say that the activity is the same 24/7, doesn't matter, that then would lend itself to the possibility of how much stuff are we missing in the daytime that actually is paranormal. I read an article once, and this was years ago, and I don't even remember who wrote it or anything, but it was based on the premise that if ghosts are real, spirits are real, then some guy calculated that 1 out of every 800 people you see in the daytime is a ghost. and I'm laughing. I'm not saying that's legit or anything because obviously he just pulled the numbers out of his ass, let's face it. But it does lead to that premise that if the daytime is as active as the night that we've experienced, then yeah, there is that possibility that you might see apparitions, but because it's in the day in a city or whatever, you would never recognize it, right? And that's kind of what Carrie was alluding to, and Dave, you too. So I just wanted to throw that in. But I think we're in agreement. I think we can sum this one up as it doesn't matter the time. Dead hour doesn't really mean anything. Dead hour to me, maybe we need to start looking, guys, at dead hour or witching hour as that hour on that in particular investigation that something happened.
You
And
know,
then,
Cordell, sorry, Cordell, I think the dead hour is probably the time when it's gone so dead we've started packing up.
Yeah.
You know, seriously, I think that like kind of 3 o'clock period, we have probably started packing up because it has been absolutely dead. No pun intended, of course, but
well,
yeah.
I laugh because you're absolutely right. It's funny how when we're on investigations, and I know we can all say stuff about this, that you'll have this 30-minute peak of all this stuff, crazy stuff going on, then it just goes dead, you
Sure.
know.
Well, let
And
me ask you this: if let's just say we're in a building, how well, no crap, but we're investigating and we're assuming the deceased are on the same time schedule as us. So if it's nighttime, they would at 3 o'clock, you would think they're sleeping. If it's daytime, you would think they're up. So you would have to actually know that they share the exact same time. And sorry, I shut up.
no. I mean, because
Artifacts, I forget we get into this, and it's so hard to stay contained.
no,
But
and honestly, guys, whatever this leads us, these type of conversations, it's all good. And Carrie, what you brought up is another theory in the paranormal, or what people claim to be fact, that we'll get into in a minute because it leads into what you said. So the next thing, which is big, I want to hit some of the handful of big things in the paranormal that a lot of people just call fact. They don't even call it a hypothesis or theory, or maybe this is what they just pronounce it as fact. And so here's one that seems to be bigger than ever. 15 years ago, I don't remember this being mentioned as much it is now. Now I hear it almost on every single TV show, everywhere, and that is portals, spirit portals. And this concept, there's a doorway that's in a specific area because usually because of some weird energy, or because of the earth that's surrounding it, or because somebody
orbs
played
coming up,
with Ouija board. The what?
orbs that are just disturbed in one
Yeah,
area because of a draft. There's so many orbs. It's the portal.
well, yeah, and the other thing is that, you know, that it has to do with the earth, or because your teenage kids played with the Ouija board and opened up a portal. And honestly, I this one I get so frustrated with because I see it all the time, guys. And again, I'll start with Dave, then go to Carrie, but I see it all the time, and it's stated as fact. And what's your take? And this is something that we could probably talk about for a long time. So what's your take on the concept that portals are fact?
Yeah, Coyle. I mean, it's BS. Well, hey, and these are my views. You know, I don't want to upset any viewers or whatever, but just out of the years, it's I've never ever encountered anything that could be a portal like. I suppose the only thing you could liken it to is probably another theory. That's the stone tape theory, which we'll probably get to. You know, where some locations can replay certain events. But no, my kind of thoughts on that, Cordale, are that it's complete rubbish, and it probably comes from a more religious kind of aspect, I think, than any facts. You're on mute.
Yeah, he's on
I
mute.
know I'm a mute, so I
Best
don't.
place for him.
Yo, shut up. So, Gary, I'm gonna. It's. I want to hear from you next, but so I just wanted to add though, because one of the biggest concept of a portal is that it's, call it a rip, a slice, a doorway between the physical and spiritual worlds. Um, and it seems to always be presented as a bad thing. Like it's like this is bad. You got a portal in your basement.
Demonic.
All kinds of stuff are coming through. We got to get it closed. How it got open, I don't know. Go ahead, Carrie.
Portal is a word. It is the definition. It's an entrance. That's my door can be a portal. It's just an entrance, a way in or a way out. So the word is an actual word with an actual definition. It's just that somebody has taken that and they feel a breeze or they see dust particles come. That's the biggest one I've seen. I never portals was just. But then the more I saw, like you said, Cordell, there was shows, Paranormal Portal or stuff. But even watching YouTube, I don't know how many people I would see that would walk by or something, or there'd be a breeze and there'd be thousands of dust particles. We're all orbs of the portals of thousands of spirits coming through that portal. It's just an entrance or an exit. It's an actual word. It's my door. It's my window. It's not a paranormal.
Well, hey guys, let me ask this question about portals and oh wait a minute. I'm trying to get so everybody in the
big, and Nick was on that paranormal portal and
well and I'm trying to get this is to everybody in the chat. I'm trying to post all your messages.
Yeah, again, it's a bandwagon. Let's jump on because people really can't explain it or back it.
I'm trying to post everybody's chat on screen. If I miss yours, I apologize. But I'm trying to post it, so it's nothing intentional. But thanks. Keep the comments coming, guys. So Carrie, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. So, and so let me throw this out, guys, because Carrie's absolutely right. It's a portal, right? The most important portal in my house is the bathroom door. That's the most important portal in my house. And it can be paranormal at times. So I just want to clarify that.
I've heard.
But, I think we all heard. Is that the smell of the dead?
Well, guys, I've yet to ever be able to close that portal. I've tried. It just
it's a good way for people who don't understand or don't want to try to understand or just want to roll with it without going against others to explain things they absolutely don't understand.
Well, Dave and Carrie, here's another question to you guys about portals. And that is, let's just take the Ouija board because I hear this one all the time going, oh, you got to close the session on the board because you'll leave this portal open or you're opening a gateway, which is a portal. This whole concept of portals, and like Carrie said, people see a bunch of what they call orbs and they go, oh, there's a portal there. And so if you do an EVP session,
it's no different.
Well, that's my point, Carrie, is and me and you've talked about it. Well, hold on a second. Me and you've talked about it many times. And so if you have this Ouija board and you open this portal and you're asking questions, what's the difference with if Dave just sits in a room by himself and starts asking questions? It's the same thing. Dave, have you ever closed an EVP session? I never have.
EVP session, no. No, Cordell, I think it must originate from, when I was in my younger days in the 2000s, when I during investigations we used to carry out in the early days in the UK. I think cold spots in houses were said to be portals, right? So if you had a cold spot in your house, then that was where for some reason, which all these experts kind of put forward as fact, was that you obviously had ghosts because there was a
portals. Just
portals. Aye. I don't know. I'm just like completely thrown off there. No, so yeah, I think when we used to investigate back in the day, it was cold spots. I know it's just progressed to portals because they sound more dynamic and interesting.
Carrie, your turn.
They were gates.
So, Carrie, what do you want to say on this? Because
it was the same thing, but people back then, instead of the portal, it was the gates. The gates are opening, or this is the gate to hell, or this is the gate.
The veil is lifted.
Yeah, so basically the same concept. It's just that all of a sudden this portal came in, like Janie said, Ghost Adventures, Nick, and all them, and then hate saying it, I should get a buck for every time. You guys should get a buck every time I say this. It's another bandwagon. Let's jump on because it sounds good. We can't explain it per se, or people don't want to accept it because, but blow all that away. If people are focusing on what they think is a portal, how much of the other stuff are they missing?
Well, and Carrie and Dave and Carrie, let me throw this at you. It goes with what you're both saying. Could the concept of a portal actually be reassuring, and it's why people want to believe that these little doorways? Because what I mean by reassuring is because that's also lends the concept that you can actually close it and get rid of your demons, right? You can get rid of everything because you can close the door. Do you think that facilitates the belief?
Feel religious.
It is. I suppose it depends if you believe in an afterlife, because what it kind of infers is that there is an afterlife where everyone is, and every so often someone can come through to talk to you. But there is that kind of everyone is over there, everyone you love, cherished, etc., etc. I think it does. It does give you hope. I think that's the human condition. Without, and I know religion has played a big part in that.
Okay. I know, Carrie. Go ahead. You have something.
Like first grade here.
Yeah.
With what Dave's saying, and what you're saying, teacher. If you think about it, going off of what Dave's saying too, it can be a way for someone is like a forgiveness. I can take what I did here, get rid of it, and I'm forgiven. And so it can be a self thing, not even bringing the religious aspect into it or the afterlife. If you do something and you feel bad, and okay, I'm going to put that behind me. That's the same thing. They all tie together, and I think people are going to take it how they want to take it. So I think it can be self-soothing, but I really do think people can freak themselves out over it unnecessarily.
See, and I agree with what you both said. I look at the whole concept of this is my take on it, and I'll make it quick. But my take on it is that it is a doorway, and as all doorways, they can open or close. So therefore, let me mute Dave.
I thought I heard Dad.
I know I had to mute Dave there. So that's my take, is that I think people tend to want to believe in portals because as it's opened, it can also be closed. I think that's why they've tied it to the Ouija boards. They've tied it to the Ouija boards because no matter how terrified you are playing the Ouija board, you can always stop it, right?
But by the time you say that big long prayer because there's a million of them for the Ouija board. Whatever was coming through is going to get you anyways.
Well, it'll at least
Might
start.
as well and burn the damn thing.
Carrie, it will at least have time to start undoing your pants. As we know,
I'm out.
everything that comes through the Ouija board starts doing that. And I'm referencing a particular show,
Oh yeah,
and a particular house, a particular show.
or whatever.
And for those in the audience that don't understand what I was referencing,
Yeah,
that's okay.
it was an all-time low if you ask me. But yeah, but I mean, think of it. Everything you have to do after doing that, you're gone.
Well, yeah,
Got you in the movies. You're dead. You're the first one caught.
and we've
The
spent now,
matches and the salt.
and it's interesting. We've spent like 20 minutes now just on one, portals, and it's because it's so prevalent. It's out there on everything. I've watched even Bigfoot stuff, Dave, and they said, well, there's a portal in this mountain that they come through.
Hey, even UFOs, everything comes out of portals now. You know.
Well,
I think it's one of the easiest things to make people try to understand too. It's a basic concept.
Well, again, it's a reference point. It's a door. We all know what a door is. A door can open, and if a door can open, it can also be closed. I think that's why it's popular, because if your house is haunted, you can have a psychic come in. They can go in. Dave, they go into your bathroom, go, there's a portal right here. Then Dave goes, what can we do? And the psychic goes, well, I can close it. Then Dave goes, great, close it. It's closed. Dave sleeps better. Well, then Dave sleeps better until he has to use that portal again. So no, and I'm joking around here, but that's really, to me, what it's all about. It's that whole closing and opening, and you can send somebody something back to another place that isn't here, and that's why people believe in it.
Yeah, but you have to know what you're sending back, which is saying what for sure that there's an afterlife. You've got the facts or whatever. But what burns my ass is when you got people will come in and clear your house or close that portal for you, and they come in with all this stuff and they're claiming they're closing a portal. They're getting paid under the table to close that portal, but it's a good way to take people.
I think it just gives some finality, doesn't it?
Scam at some point.
You know, and I think it has just become popular with this kind of I can come into your home and you know, I have the power to send these things into the light wherever that is. You know, anybody who's got that power, fantastic. No one has got that power. No one knows what this phenomenon is. You know.
So to wrap up the whole portal conversation, because we could go on probably another hour or two just on this concept of portals. Here's my final word on it is I have not seen any evidence of any existence of a doorway to somewhere else that, you know, spirits and whatever can just rush through and invade your space. I have not seen any evidence of it. And look, guys, and this is to the audience, not just to Dave and Carrie, but if somebody has evidence, and I mean valid, actual verifiable evidence, I'm open to it. I really am, but I haven't seen any. So real quick, I'll ask each of you, what's your final word on portals, Dave?
Yeah, everything I've investigated and come across suggests that there are no portals.
Carrie, what's your final word on portals?
I agree with Dave, but real quick, and I won't go off on my tangent. You're looking at then the aspect of good and bad and taking a portal in several different ways. Because you know, if you're thinking someone you loved has passed on, then that's a good thing. You're wanting to feel a comfort in that. And then you have others who take it and turn it into something else. So, yeah, that's what he does too. So, if it makes you comfortable, then by all means. But evidentially, in that, no, I agree with Dave.
Yeah, and I think that kind of sums it up, guys. Is I'm open to something actually existing, but I need more than just a bunch of people saying that it's true.
Yeah.
I need
Or
and we've
conversation.
and between the three of us, I don't know, we have 60 years of investigating experience, or 50, or I don't know, somewhere around there. Haven't counted it all up.
One
But
of us is only in our 60s.
but oh jeez. That hurt, Carrie. Anyway, but yeah, I haven't seen any, not even one aspect. And it's interesting is that if I claim there was a portal everywhere, in a location I had a concentration of activity. I mean, because isn't that part of the problem, guys, about the whole port? Wherever there's concentration of activity, then people claim portal.
Portal
And
has one way in, but you can't. They come in, but they can't go, which is ludicrous.
I just wonder if it stems back from the kind of fairy realm. There used to be portals where they used to drag people in there. I just wonder if it is just a natural progression from the early folklore on
yeah.
fairies.
But let's move on, because
Well, just real
again,
quick, if it comforts people in that, by all means, just don't take it as this negative. You got something in your house and this portal is gonna, that part just BS. But
one quick thing to the people viewing this in the chat: if you, I welcome you to throw out a topic, and we'll discuss it here. So if you have something, yeah, go ahead and throw it out here, and we'll pick it up and talk about it. And I'm talking about today's show. If you have a theory or a concept that you feel really strongly about and you believe in, yeah, throw it out there. We'll talk about it. Or maybe you don't like it, throw it out there. So let's move on to this is one of my big pet peeves, is residual hauntings, which takes many forms. And Dave, you already mentioned it, because part of the whole residual concept is that something in the environment magically records and stores
contains
this whole process. And I this is one that really bugs me, because there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever, in my opinion. Now, if somebody has evidence and you believe strongly about your evidence, present it, show me, tell me. I'm happy to change my mind. I just have not seen any evidence about residual. And before I give Carrie and Dave a chance to talk, so here's my quick take. This is what frustrates me is, and we've been on more than one investigation where the owner will say, yeah, we get woken up at 2 o'clock, around 2 o'clock every morning, and we hear stomping footsteps going down the hall, down the stairs. And that automatically gets labeled as residual. So here's my take on it: is 90% of everything I do every single day of my life and for the last 35 years is the same. I get up, I make coffee, I drink my coffee, I watch the news, I take a shower, I go to work, I get it, it. So why would a pattern all of a sudden mean it's not an intelligent haunting, guys? That somehow it must be a residual or a recording in some weird, unexplainable way. And so I'm going to shut up because I'm going to go grab me a Mountain Dew. Dave, you go ahead. Then Carrie, you go ahead. And what's your take on residual hauntings?
Yes. So when I first started, I was a big kind of a big proponent of or support of the stone tape theory. I was a kid and I didn't really know any better. And it was a lot of the views put forward from the Ghost Club of London, who I was part of. So, and what it really looks at is if people aren't familiar with the stone tape theory, it is just that it's that something in the environment, and that there's a belief that it's stone or limestone has the ability to record certain events or certain emotions and replay them, and to replay them, it's either based upon something happening in that environment, or it's the individual's perception or sensory kind of understanding of the area. And there's one well-known case in the UK, and that's the Roman soldiers from Treasurer's House in York. And there is a belief that that is a kind of evidence of this stone tape theory, where this builder was in the basement, and all of a sudden he hears this kind of sound, and he falls from his stepladder, and he looks up, and you see the kind of the Roman soldiers start coming through the basement, and they're walking as if they would have walked on the old Roman road, so they're cut off by the ankles or shins. So that's why I got interested in the stone tape theory, because I thought, well, if you look at the kind of the Tower of London, if you look at all the old castles, a lot of the sightings were just these random images walking down corridors. I once interviewed someone who saw a bride and a groom stand in the middle of the field, just standing in the middle of a field as if they were getting married. So I suppose, if there is these locations which could store energy, well, how do you activate them? Can you activate them? And I think what I kind of believe more now is that, are they actually being replayed in your time, or are you actually glimpsing them in their time? And I think that's the kind of where I'm probably getting more towards. So from a stone tape perspective, I'm not sure scientifically how stone or limestone or whatever can record emotion or events. But, there is a possibility that you could be seeing things unfold in their time. So that's my thoughts, Cordell.
So before I let Carrie talk, I'm going to answer Jane's question. So Jane, I put it up on the screen, violently murdered completely by surprise. You don't think they would stay on in the house they lived? Oh no, I believe they do. But my point, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jane. We're as far as residual, because the whole concept in the paranormal of residual hunting is a mindless, non-interacting occurrence.
Repetitive.
Now, having said that, what about, I could easily say, guys, hey, well, yeah, I tried to disrupt this person walking down the hall, and they totally ignored me and kept walking and went down and totally ignored me. Or they were talking to somebody else, not us. There's a concept too that, well, maybe they don't see or hear us. Maybe they phase in and out, just like we hear them only occasionally, we see them only occasionally. So therefore, they might do the same with us. They don't always hear us or see us. Anyway, back to the residual. I don't know if I answered, but Jane, I perfectly believe somebody could be in their house and not know they're dead. I do believe that. I think somebody could be murdered, be in their house, and not realize they're dead and think they're still alive. I think that's a possibility. So, Carrie, on residual hauntings, go ahead.
A bunch of crap running. So residual, you're basically saying there's something that's containing these events, but it's the whole concept. If you don't know, okay, I'll shut up on that one. You understand what I'm talking about. We're going with Dave. If an event is taking place, Dave's events are totally different from my events. And Cordell, you were saying your event is pretty much saying my days are so sporadic and random. Not one day is like the next day. So how could it come back as a residual repeating these events? And I do agree with you, Dave, though, that if there's something that's deeply personal, it can be an individual thing. I'm not going to view or recept things that you would, or Cordell. You know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to condense it all. And
Carrie,
it's an easy excuse for people who don't have an answer and can't admit they don't know too.
and I think it kind of, a big thing in the UK was anniversary ghosts. Where if you went to a certain certain place at a certain time, you would see a reenactment. So Uther Pendragon, who's Arthur's alleged father in law, he rides headless across a place called Shap on a certain night. It was the single book which got me interested in this whole thing. I had planned to go to every one of these locations on these dates to see all these things. But once again, evidentially, we haven't been able to identify any anniversary type spirits.
There's one out, the monk that would. It's interesting that Cross is in England, and it's on the anniversary of, can't think of his name's execution.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, there have been executions reenacted. There have been, especially the Civil War. There have been, and even the U.S. Civil War. There have been people have stumbled across kind of situations where they thought there was a reenactment. But if you look at the environment, I mean, how could from a scientific perspective, how could the environment store an event?
That's what I'm saying. It contains.
I just don't know.
Contains it. If we know what's going to contain it, then we pretty much have answers.
But I think if you look at all the things we've seen, I suppose there's only one we could probably chalk down to if there was such a thing as residual, then I think, Cordell, it was that half a woman we saw walking down on that balcony, just walking along the balcony, doing her own thing. Well, without the top half, I should say. Yeah, I mean,
but then
scientifically, no.
Sorry, I saw the same thing, but at a different time.
Yeah, and I think once we move from the classical mechanics to quantum mechanics, maybe there is a kind of something in that, and maybe. And I think it gets back to time. I think it gets back to time and frequency. That's what I think.
So let me refine. I mean, here's the problem I have with residual is that one is the concept that it's mindless. There's no consciousness to it. I hear that all the time in the paranormal going, it's just a recorder playing over and over and over. And they say, well, there's no consciousness to it. There's no awareness. It's not an entity. It's just a recording. I have a problem with that. And let's take the Civil War, because Dave brought up, you take Gettysburg, it happens all the time. People hear gunshots, see soldiers and everything. The other problem I have is so if you take Gettysburg, what would contain it? And a lot of people say, well, like quartz. Quartz, for example, can store it like a recorder. Um, that has no meaning. That statement doesn't say anything. It doesn't say how, why, under what conditions, nothing. It really doesn't say anything at all. And that's the problem I have. If you're going to come up with a theory and hold to it, you have to back it up. You have to be able to explain how it can actually occur, not just throw a bunch of word salad together and say, oh well, this is how. It has to have meaning to it. And here's the now having said all that, guys, I'm open to it actually occurring, because you guys all gave great examples, like Dave's wedding, where a wedding is just reoccurring all the time. But my question, let's say that the environment a certain conditions can store this. Would you conclude that it would have no awareness, that those two people, Dave getting married or in Gettysburg, Carrie, that there's no awareness or no consciousness? Hold on.
Before I bite my tongue off.
Hold on.
Stop.
So would you also say there can't be any consciousness to it? And Carrie, you go first since you're going crazy.
Yeah, because you're saying these events like Gettysburg, or even Dave, these tragic events. Gettysburg is an emotional, it's not a mindless event. It was tragic. There was other, so saying things at Gettysburg or whatever, because people I think do associate with residual. It's an easy, I don't have an answer, I'm going to tell you this, and it's this mindless thing repeating. These events are not mindless.
Well, hold on. I want to clarify. I'm not referring to the actual event of Gettysburg and the tragedy and the war and the people, what they experienced then. What I'm saying is, people claim that residual hauntings, there's no awareness to that entity, no more than there is after we get done with this broadcast, that it's just a recording. I can't superimpose an intelligence beyond the recording. That there's no human, because Dave's image after it's recorded is just Dave's image, a moment in time that has no awareness and can't step out of those frames of reference. His reference point is forever locked in that reference frame. So anyway, go ahead, Carrie.
But then you're individually, everything would be different. But no, these are like mind-blowing events that through history, even things that we're taught, living in England, the culture, the castles and everything there's these events everywhere that can affect and cause different things for different people. What you might think as something, it's just something, might mean something completely different to somebody else. You can't just classify everybody's as the same and in the same category. I know I'm probably all over the place because I'm trying to get it all in. I've got it written down everywhere, trying to contain it again, all in this little thing. But as we've talked about before, I mean, this just opens millions of questions. But no, what pisses me off is how many times people just say they don't know, and it's just, you got a residual haunting, and people accept it.
Well, I think
come across that. We've had clients say, yeah, there's a residual here.
No, I agree with that.
Sorry.
No, I agree with that. And that's why, well, Carrie, and this is why this one.
It's passionate. It's a very passionate
Well, it is for me because again, these areas, I have yet to see any proof of the claims, and
We can
we've done this well, and we
seen
go
her and
ahead.
catch it and release it in Tennessee.
Well, and we've experienced this ourselves. Um, and I've yet to see any hardcore evidence of it. And my biggest issue with this whole idea of residual is because I've been in computers now 37 years. This year is 37 years. I know how computers, I know how storage works. Now, granted, I can't necessarily compare that to the supernatural, but on a technical level, I don't see it. I just can't. It's just by itself, quartz can't just retain this perfect little 30-second sequence and never lose anything and always play it for hundreds of years over and over. I just, I technically speaking, I haven't, yeah, I just, no. Go ahead, Dave. I know you're.
No, that's why I think that. And you're right. I mean, does that mean if it's been replayed is elsewhere in the world at that same moment in time, or therefore is it storing a heck of a lot of data? I'm not sure if any storage device could store that.
Even down knowing other cultures' histories, and how does that tend to
But
make people believe? Or
yeah, I mean, I do think so. For example, in the case of the bride and groom standing in the middle of a field, I do think that may have been just a memory or an echo. But I think you do. I think there is probably more likelihood of you being a kind of a voyeur in time rather than, because there's an assumption that it has been replayed in your time. What if that's not the case? What if you were actually viewing that time as it's unfolding then and there?
I do want to say thanks, Kimberly. That was a good point because I think Kimberly's partially right on that statement she just made. And Carrie, you've already mentioned it too. I think there's a comfort level because the reality is, what can a paranormal investigator do other than try to comfort and etc. So yeah, I think that's a good.
well, reality is we're all individuals, and nothing's gonna be the exact same. It's impossible. It's just a lot of. It brings out, like, we could sit all day and talk about.
No, I was just going to mention, guys, that
Because
so
we get passionate too.
well, I was just going to mention that we've been on for over an hour now. We've talked about three. So that tells you right there that we could go on
That's
forever.
the thing in the parent. We don't have the answers. And
No,
if
no. I mean,
you have the
that's a
answers,
key point.
Oh, one at a time, one at a
oh no,
time.
we're just in agreement. We don't have the answers. If
Yeah.
someone's telling you they have the answers, by all means, to come prove it, explain it, write the Holy Bible on it.
No,
but
and
we're not going to know.
I agree. So we'll close out this one for now.
Sorry, Dave, didn't mean to.
And it's you can tell that it's and this is why I get I can go on forever on this subject because it's one that bothers me because again it's the easy answer, right? It's like the portal thing. Oh, you got something in your basement, there's a portal there. Oh, your kids played the Ouija board 6 months ago, that's what caused your problem, you got a portal open. It's the easy answer, right? You don't have to do anything. If you go, oh, that's a residual haunting, you just leave it at that and you can walk away and go, yeah, don't worry about it.
You're okay.
Yeah. And again, it's the easy answer. And if you're truly going to be an investigator, guys, why would you always want to take the easy answer? And especially an answer that actually has no validity or can't be actually proved. when the better thing to do is to actually try to prove something before you claim it. That's just my opinion. And real quick, so here's kind of my other take on this. And maybe we'll do a whole show on quantum mechanics and quantum physics and time and space, because I've been fascinated by this. And if because there's one theory that the past, present, and future is occurring at the same time, and we can get into those type of theories and the paranormal, because they could be part of it. We won't do it here because we only have 25 more minutes on this show, and we've only talked about 3 areas. Now, those were the 3 big areas, guys, that I wanted to touch base on. And Dave and Carrie, you had fantastic points. And this last one, I think I was kind of surprised, guys, because there's a lot of emotions on that last one. The whole idea of residual, and it's something. Carrie, you already said it. We just don't know, and I'm glad we're honest enough to say I don't know. Because I don't. I have my issues, but I don't know.
I
I
think
think all we can do as investigators is just. I mean, there are no experts. No one knows anything really. Some people claim it as fact. Some people claim they're experts. There are none whatsoever. I mean, no one knows what this phenomenon is. And I think all we can do as investigators is to put forward or try to correlate with things we've seen and heard and kind of, we've heard. And I think the majority of whatever we're seeing, there is an element of interaction somehow, So anyway.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I think nowadays, in younger generation or whatever, they don't want to be confronted with these questions, because then they almost have to state, I don't know. And the I don't know opens a whole nother door that can be scary for them, or they have to admit, well, yeah, I don't know. But the problem is a majority of people don't want to bring that question on and confront it. I mean, bring it like we're doing. Prove us wrong. Prove us. But it's almost like an acceptance. You're a paranormal investigator, and you agree with all this crap.
Well, Carrie, can I add one thing to your statement?
Mhm.
I'd add one thing, saying it doesn't fit into a 15-minute YouTube live broadcast. And that, so, okay. So, Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot here. The next area of conversation for the next however long it takes is your call. What do you, on a paranormal theory that you really struggle with and people present it as fact, what's your turn? I presented 3 of the top ones.
I think I've got a problem with the majority of what's put forward on different shows and things. I mean, we've already been through orbs. We've already been through the power to be able to send people to the light, or send whatever to the light, and all the sage and the kind of the different processes. And I mean, that's a tough one, Colin. I think we've probably covered a lot of that. Maybe you could combine it. Demons. That's a whole new episode. I think let's cover mediums.
Okay. Okay, Dave. Well, you
Sorry.
Can I make one
Sorry.
comment?
Just before we do. All right. Go ahead, Carrie.
Oh no, sorry. Jane made a comment. I don't know if we covered it. And this ties into a lot of it too. Paranormal State. That show brought in a bunch of these topics, and actually that program really ties into the word the religious part. I think Dave's going to talk about. No, someone made. Didn't know if you got that posted.
I did. I posted it.
Okay, I didn't see it.
Oh, I didn't post this one.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Jane, that brings up a good question, and this might tie into what Dave brought up is that so he takes Gettysburg because we've often pondered between the three of us from time to time that do we create the activity? And what I mean by that is we have had areas where we've had it saturated with recorders and video. And when nobody is in the building, hardly anything ever happens. 99%, nothing happens. When we're there, activity happens. So that might tie into Jane's question, guys, about Gettysburg, that if it's constantly reenacted on the same location, would that in itself prompt activity? Because that's actually a very interesting subject. We've talked about it many times. What is your feeling, Dave?
So, sorry, bud. Can you repeat that?
Repeat the whole thing. So
Yeah.
the concept that you take Gettysburg, the only reason there is a lot of activity is
Yeah.
because
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, here's a question then, or a counter question. Then, if we aren't there, do these things still happen? You know, and I mean, we have had a lot of interaction when we've been there, but we've had very little occur on audio devices and things when we aren't there. You know, it's as if it needs us to kind of to accelerate or enhance or whatever. You know, we have rarely had anything occur when we haven't been monitoring or in the area. So yeah, Jane, I don't know how. I suppose in theory, then we could keep the entities active because we're there. Do they occur? Does this thing occur when we aren't there? I don't know.
Okay, Carrie, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I've often wondered if things that we experience or feel in certain locations, we can't take, especially in ones that we've been going to for years, or can't take these bits and pieces and almost create this one that's a little bit of everything and assign it to. I think we've all do that at some point, or question, or is it really that there's just this individual that is there because of you, or did you call them? You understand when we talk about? Yeah, no, all right. No, if you're going somewhere and things happen and you go years and years and years, or in, let's say this happens this time, this happens this time, or whatever, we catch this and this, how many times can it be put into one?
Mm. No,
I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying it's possible.
it's an interesting question because again, it goes to the whole concept: do we create the activity, or our mere presence activates the activity? And I think one of the biggest things that's an unknown is, does the activity occur whether we're there or not? And I can't answer that because that's kind of the key to this whole thing. That it's like last night at an investigation me and Carrie were on, a particular couple things happened. Would those things still have happened if me and Carrie weren't there?
What
If
if
nobody
one
was there?
person only gets those activities or feels or picks up on those things? Does it mean it's not there? It's not possible because of an individual or something?
I don't know. Dave, what's your
I,
thought?
I think evidentially we haven't, even audio, we put audio in different locations. Out of the tens of thousands of EVPs we've recovered, there's only a handful of a voice or something when we haven't been in the location.
Right.
So evidentially, we don't seem to. It's as if we don't seem to get that kind of interaction when we aren't there. So
Yeah, and I think what Carrie was referring to is the other part of that question. Is it unique to certain individuals, to certain
mm,
situations, and certain person at a location cause more activity? Because we've had investigators that were with us for several years that never really would experience anything. It seemed they were like anti paranormal themselves. They kind of pushed it away for some reason. Anyway, that's probably another whole show, guys. um it's interesting, all the claims. There's so many claims out there, and I want to touch on the whole medium thing, because again, I'm open to everything, and if but I need more than just somebody saying, um, oh yeah, your whole backyard's full of these 15-foot black weird looking creatures that are walking up and down your backyard. I've literally heard that on a TV show, by the way. They're as big as
I know
trees.
what show that is.
And yeah, Carrie knows what show that is, but I've literally heard that. And this is the problem I have with these type of statements is I need something to back that up with. I can't just go, oh, you see a bunch of entities, strange entities that are tall as trees wandering around the backyard trying to break into the house. That's just like so bizarre. That's even more bizarre than like anything in Lord of the Rings or any fantasy novel out there. And this is the problem, guys. Any one of us, Carrie, Dave, me, anybody listening, we can go on an investigation and make any claim we want. Because and we don't have to back it up. And that's the problem with a lot of these TV shows and a lot of the groups out there. There's all kinds of claims being made, guys. And where's the evidence other than anyway, I want to hear from you guys. So Carrie, what's your thoughts on the whole concept of just these all these weird claims out there, and also along with that, Carrie, is the whole idea, and you'll know what I'm talking about, that don't worry about those tree-like entities that are trying to break in your house, because I can fix it for you. You just need a Reiki master, a shaman, 2 mules, and 4 ducks, and they can go out there and do a ceremony and they'll stop them. What's your take on this stuff?
I mean, I think that part's total BS, but I was the one that grew up that way. And no, did we take audio videos everywhere we went? No, but I hit on like 90% of it. So there is, I will swear to God, there is something to it. And seeing creatures or a bunch at once is like, it's usually, if it's something, it's 1 or 2. But I've got so much I can back up. That for me, I don't like the word medium. I don't like the word psychic or any of that stuff. But for me, it's real, but you can't use it as any type of evidence. And you certainly don't go to a client and say, I experienced this. This is a fact or whatever. It's, I'm not going to go into that, but I could bring stuff in to say that, yes, it can take place.
So Carrie, can I add this to what you just said? So is it fair to say, though, that if you experience this stuff, and I know you don't like the terms, but let's say Jane here is a medium. She goes, "Oh, I picture a little girl in this room." One can use that as just a possible source of something, but you need a lot more stuff to collaborate it.
Well, that's just with anything. Nothing's
Well,
in.
no, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of summing up what you're talking about, right? It's
Well,
fine.
that's 100%, and you
Okay.
can't record or contain everything all day long and different. All it's just way beyond this simple concept.
Okay.
It's just way more than that.
Dave, what's your take on it?
Yeah, Coral. Once again, from a scientific or evidential perspective, I've had zero evidence of mediums and psychics and things like this. I think
There's no
it
sense.
has, and I think probably it. If you look at paranormal investigators, for example, it's probably went the same way. Whereas it's been flooded with that much bullshit, that it's tough to identify the real or the truthful aspects with respect to the false, the showboating, so I think it's just been victim of what you're seeing with this reality TV crap. But I've never had any evidence of. I mean, from a medium perspective, it does. It does. I mean, a lot of people who are very upset, who do go and do find comfort. So, in that aspect, then is it doing a good thing by putting people's minds at rest? But it doesn't mean to say that it's real. Okay, and really with mediums and seances, it's been happening since the Victorian age and before that, and even then it was found to be a hoax. So yeah, I'm not really I haven't really got any evidence to prove that could happen, Codell, to be honest with
Well,
you.
and it's interesting because I think it goes back thousands of years. You can go back to the oracles in
Mm,
Greece from the Greek period, Oracle of Delphi, which was really a medium. If you really look and read what the Oracle of Delphi and stuff in the Greek periods, it was really a medium that was projecting, and spirits and gods were coming speaking through her, and it was always a female, which is interesting because I think we could do a whole show. Because Carrie, I'd like your take on this or your thoughts, because
No, I absolutely agree with the whole showboating, and it does make it hard for those
yeah.
that truly go through these things who don't like to even address it and hide it from people. But like for me, when I'm waking up at a specific time, what's he writing?
you got to read it.
Yeah, Sam's gonna be with him.
I love Bob.
Um, to pinpointing who died, the exact time, why, and things like this. It happens, but it is not this what everybody thinks it is. Everybody's got this idea of what I don't like medium psychics or anything like this, but everybody has this concept of what this all fits into this category and can't see out of that category because there's no way to actually contain or prove anything. But at the same time, you can't prove that it's not. But
Okay.
it's completely this. Like Dave said, it is a complete BS of oh, I'm a psychic. It doesn't go like that. It's
Well,
so
no,
far from that. So much deeper and so far from that shit. It
and
pisses me off.
well, and we could probably do a whole show on that. And this reminded me of something too, guys. This last topic here, because believe it or not, we only got like 5 minutes left. It just flew by again. And I have to say to the audience, I want to thank everybody out there. And we love getting the chat replies. I try to not miss anybody and get them on screen. And as I talk, Jane's got one up here.
Oh, Bob. Is that Uncle Bob?
Maybe we ought to do a whole show on Bob. We'll profile Bob and we'll talk whether so anyway, I think tonight's show was good. I enjoyed it. I was expecting to get through like 7 or 8 or 9 theories. We only managed really like 3.5 because we the last 2 we spent a lot of time on. So I want to throw this. Bob agrees. A whole show on Bob. uh, so maybe because I was Carrie was talking, and we talked about our last subject on mediums and psychics. It's interesting because I have not seen any statistics or anything, but my experience is that majority are women. And before anybody says anything, on investigating, I have always found women to be more sensitive in general of their surroundings and what is going on. And they seem to go through much more emotionally. Now, whether it's the guys just suppressing all that. Now, having said that, it's an interesting topic because we could have a topic maybe for another broadcast sometime. Do women or men have an advantage over in paranormal investigating? And maybe neither do. But I think there's a valid question there because I've seen and you guys know this is fact here that I'll be on an investigation, say with 2 or 3 women. Women are by themselves, all kinds of crap happens. I show up and it just dies. They go, oh, Cordell's here. Crap. And everything dies. So I think maybe, I don't know how you guys feel, but maybe we ought to have a broadcast about that because I think it's an interesting topic. So real quick, just a couple sentences, Dave. What do you think about that concept?
I think women can hear higher frequency, as you know, and a lot of the kind of EVBs we've picked up are at that higher range of the frequency. So possibly they can hear more. I know we can't because we're male and we're deaf as posts, you know. But I think women can hear that higher frequency range, and this is where the EVPs seem to be hiding out.
Carrie, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, if it's this, you don't have a choice in the fact. It is what it is. You don't have a choice on how this crap happens. But going into the male-female thing, there was huge studies that, men are scientific, black and white. There's an answer for everything. And women are emotional and hearts are bleeding for everything. Does that play into it? Sure, it can. But for like me, it started from the moment I can remember. There's no options. There's no options for me. It just is. But it's not something you go around talking about. It's not something you throw out at people. It's almost like you hide it.
Well, the reason I brought it up because we've always talked about it, and it's always in the context, at least when me and Carrie's talked about it, because it's interesting how a place will go quiet when I'm there, and then as soon as I leave, all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. I come back in and it goes quiet again.
Not when you're pleading your heart out, which you've done, and crap happens.
And so I started thinking as we talked about this, it's like, so maybe it's better to have a team of mostly women on a paranormal team versus all men. Just throwing it out there. I don't want an answer. So
No, I'm getting messages.
so women might make better paranormal investigators. I don't know. We might have to do a whole show on that. I just don't want it to be men versus women, but I think there is a big difference because and part of it is biologically and how our minds work. And I don't want any hate mail about that statement, but there is a difference and it does affect investigating, I think. But look, it's a hour and a half. Tonight, I really enjoyed this broadcast. We didn't even scratch the surface on theories and what people claim out there. I literally, again, thought we could get through 7 or 8. We got through 3, maybe 3.5. But so it was good. And as usual, I enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Click the like button. If you're not subscribed to this channel, our channel, please do. But yeah, the like button, click it if you like this at all. Even if you just sort of liked it and thought most of it was crap, go ahead and click the like button anyway. It's good for us. So, Dave, what's your final thoughts about tonight's broadcast?
No, Corella, I think once we start speaking about time space, once we start speaking about frequency, wavelength,
You want
I'm hoping for a sponsor.
sponsorship? I got it.
oh, no. You know, a classic example is why are some ghosts blue, green, white, and it gets back to frequency, right? And energy. So we'll discuss a huge, that needs to be a separate show because I think a lot of my thoughts are heading in that direction. I just want to quickly, Kimberly asked a question a while ago, Cora, maybe missed. And just in terms of the tragic situation that led to a murder. So
That's Bob.
my ex hearing me fought before. Oh, God. But sorry, just to answer Kimberly, there is I was once I used to live in a house which used to have a lady crying in the attic, and she used to cry all the time. And when I went up, she had all these kind of cards lying out, and the cards had indicated how she had died. So can they come back to kind of to show you? Well, I've had experience of that. Her husband had left her, and she had killed herself. So, and the cards had said that. So, yeah, I don't know, but I have had evidence of where someone was trying to show how they had passed on. And then when I put the cards away and I told her that the husband wasn't worth it anymore, she stopped crying. So,
Really?
yeah.
Good thoughts. Your final thoughts, Carrie,
And look, I am getting a bunch of messages
about
on people who aren't, who is siding more with me, and how do you explain these things, and how do you get by without people think you're, what's the word, sensualite or whatever, blowing it out of proportion, or addressing all this as everybody does this, feels this same report, where it's an individual, it's different. I am going to try to answer these messages.
good.
Because it can be really intimidating and scary, and you don't have to prove to anybody. If you're being honest with yourself and those that you're dealing with, then don't kill yourself going out and trying to prove to somebody you are what no one else is going to be able to. Not outside of the paranormal investigator. Those
Okay,
are messaging me understand.
Anyway, I good take, both of you guys. Thank you very much. Here's my take. I'll make it short and sweet. I can sum up most of what we talked about it as, and most in the paranormal, in this, and that is, I don't know. I think that sums it up for me. And it's the reason I still do it. People always ask me, well, how long are you going to do this? And if I went by what I've learned, going, yeah, I've learned enough now that I don't need to do this anymore. That'll never happen. It hasn't happened yet. Um, and as you both know, the other thing I would say is the more I think I know, the less I realize I know. the the it's it just keeps uh, more and more questions just keep emerging all the time. And soon as I think I know something, I realize a week later that, yeah, I really don't. So, anyway, it's been a great broadcast. And I know Dave, since he's getting older and it's getting late in Scotland, he probably needs to get to bed real soon. Get his beauty sleep. And Carrie, I don't think has been to sleep since yesterday. So, and I feel like I haven't, even though I did get 4 hours of sleep last night. But I really enjoyed tonight's conversation. And Dave, yes, we'll have a whole broadcast on frequency, wavelengths, all that. And
Yeah.
I'll try not to throw too much quantum mechanics or quantum physics in it, any of that stuff. And we haven't even touched on multiple dimensions, fourth dimension,
Yeah.
all this stuff, and parallel universes and occurring. And I mean, there's just tons of stuff. And I think it's fair game in the paranormal to talk about those things because we don't know, right? We got to keep throwing out stuff and trying to see what works and what doesn't. But anyway, we could go on, and I want to thank everybody. Thanks for all the comments, guys. You were great. And as usual, what we'll do is go around the room to say goodnight. Oh, Kimberly's got something here for Dave. That's to you, Dave.
Right. Well, that's Kimberly. I think we should probably spend a session discussing all the things we've seen, some of the investigations, because we have seen a lot of things like that. There's lots of stories we've got in terms of what we've found.
Yeah, and very true. And anyway, we'll be back next Sunday. We might have to change our date or our day that we broadcast, as Dave might have to be commuting on Sundays, like what, 500 miles, Dave, somewhere around there.
I have to drive down to England, so yeah, it's a round trip of about 500. So I usually head down. At the moment, obviously because of the pandemic, we're still on lockdown. So I usually head down Monday nights. But if that changes, I'll let you know.
Yeah, so if that does, we might have to change our broadcast time or day or both. But we'll let everybody know. And again, thank you for the people in the chat and the viewers and everything. And now that it seems like we're averaging an hour 40 minutes for each of these broadcasts. We're at an hour 39 now, so we're about average. And it goes by so quick, guys. It's like we just started, and I know Carrie feels that way, and Dave.
It's passion. It's pure passion.
Yeah. Yeah, and we could talk forever, and trust me, that's an understatement. So let's say goodnight before this goes into our fourth hour. And wait a minute, I'm hoping for a sponsor. There we go, Mountain Dew. Sorry, I have to hold it up like that because the altitude keeps the bubbling and never mind, the carbonation better. Never mind. All right, Dave, go ahead and say that was bad. Say goodnight.
Yeah, good night, everybody, and Bob, I'll see you on the heat, bud.
Carrie, go ahead and say goodnight.
Janie, Kimberly, Bob, love it. Think you're about as passionate as we are. So yeah, there's just a lot to talk about on all aspects. Because we don't know. I don't know. No one knows.
Yep. And anyway, great show, guys. Good night, Dave. Good afternoon, Carrie. Good afternoon to me. We'll catch you everybody next Sunday. Hit the like button. That really helps us. And appreciate everybody. And please, at any time, reach out to us, ask us questions. And we don't have all the answers, and that's the honest truth. And if we don't know, we're going to tell you that. And that's kind of what this show is about, and summing it up. So, anyway, thank you guys. Take care. And I had a blast. Good night, guys.
Night,
Everybody.
afternoon.